So the blog was to capture kind of ongoing narrative and progress, and somewhat consistent with the pattern that's been going on to date, and also somewhat oddly. I haven't heard from the board of directors. I haven't heard from anyone at the Human Awareness Institute, but I heard from Peter Sandhill. So then the question was kind of how to hold it. I came home in a great space today from kind of completing a job, and wanted to hang out with my wife, and there's the letter, and the question is, obviously there's not a lot of trust that Peter is competent enough to be ethical or responsible in these domains, and there's still some lingering impact from being in a lover therapeutic role. So first I decided I wouldn't watch it right away. I wanted to enjoy the good time with my wife. And my wife, Jen, offered a nice thing. She said, "Why don't I read it? I know what upsets you, and if overall, it's an upsetting email, then you don't have to read it." And she said I would probably be annoyed by the email, but that it was relatively short. So let's look at the email in a couple of different levels. So, "Hi Dane, thank you for your email. I agree with much of what you're seeking as written in your emails. I recommend you seek what has changed in the past several years. I think many best practices you are seeking have been adopted. Just so you know, I retired from High over a year ago and was on sabbatical for a year before that. I'm not in touch with what happens at High, and I'm not privy to High facilitator emails. Sarah also retired when I did. Best wishes, Peter." So, let's look at this. So first of all, from a public safety point of view, there's a couple of things that are good news. Meaning I recommended that any therapist who would prioritize, protecting destructive patterns of therapy in their partner, a fellow therapist, over the therapeutic client, had no business being in that role. In other words, Sarah Sandhill was my therapist, and she was my facilitator. But when her husband sexually abused me, she prioritized the cover-up and protection, as she saw it, of her marriage and husband over the safety of the therapeutic client. And I don't believe that's that's ethical. It's also irrational, because if you really care about your marriage and your husband, make damn sure, if he's a therapist, that he's not abusing clients. It's that simple. A marriage has no foundation if it is one of enabling sexual abuse, and so it just doesn't. There's no conflict of interest at all. If you care about your husband and you care about your marriage, then you care even more about making sure that he doesn't damage a client. That's just the way it works. And so I thought Sarah should resign because she was defiant in putting her marriage ahead of her client, and thought that was, okay. And I don't think any facilitator or therapist should be in that position. So that's one thing. And so they're both retired from high. I don't know if they're doing work on their own or not, but that's a good sign. And then I have gotten little hints and wind of changes at the Human Awareness Institute about adopting this or that. Not much, because they refuse to tell me. But the message that is being left. So these are some things that are said, and Peter agrees with most of the direction, though he fought it when it really mattered for me. Meaning he fought it when his ego was on the line, but then now that he's gone, and that seems to be a pattern. Meaning the only people who were really candid and critical about high and supportive of me was one person who had left the community. So she'd left the community and she agreed with everything I said and supported. So it almost seems like you have to leave high to have a healthy skepticism for sexual abuses at high, which isn't healthy, because it means at some level that the people that are closest to it are the most unhealthy. I mentioned in my email to Peter that one of the ways I didn't think, I measured whether or not he'd changed was, he'd under duress finally given an apology, but he never gave a refund for sexual abuse. And this was one of the big sticking points, and he's not doing that now. So he's not offering a refund, which makes a lawsuit, much more likely, because it's insulting to the industry, it's insulting to the therapeutic client. And I would hope and agree that the Human Awareness Institute is and has changed because they need to, legally, ethically, practically, etc. They need to in order to be effective. But there is a situation where my experience is that they have asked me to be invisible in every way. They've asked my pain to be invisible. They've asked my pain to be dishonored by suppressing it, suing to suppress it, secrecy, etc. They've asked the pain to be invisible, they've asked it to be dishonored, and they've refused to apologize for any of these wrongdoings that they're now correcting. At the same time, they pulled on me for ideas. I'm in a traumatized state, I'm not able to work, and they're picking my brain to learn how to do their jobs while keeping it all a secret. And then it sounds like what they want to do as part of their maintenance of grandiosity is deny it ever happened or that it was a high issue. Sweep, 4 of the most intense, painful, life-threatening years of my life under the rug as being not even worth an apology. But use the learning curve and pretend that it all comes from them. And that's consistent with the shame-based grandiosity. We can't make any mistakes, so that has to be hidden. But aren't we wonderful? Look at all the things that we're doing and adding. And so I feel disgusted with the attitude that, they're out in the front of the room probably, I referenced, reading the trauma book, etc. and stuff. And so they're up there, we're now expanding this, and we're loving you so much, we're doing this, and we're doing this. But the person they hurt to learn all that has their email accounts cut off so that their mistakes don't come to light. No refund, no help, getting better. And a denial and an excommunication. And of course, and that's the bit that's ethically flawed here. Because if the person who trusted, who put innocence, money, time, and vulnerability on the line, sustains the most hurt and damage while paying to be hurt and damaged, so that an organization and a community can grow, learn, and prosper. And in order to have that dirty secret denied, the primary victim of abuse is excommunicated from the now healthier, better organization. It's the exact opposite of trustworthy ethics, where, because trustworthy ethics dictate that the person who has been most harmed and abused by a professional must be the most helped, that the loyalty goes to the therapeutic client. And every little bit of these ethical nuances has to be taught, it seems, to the facilitators for them to grasp anything. Which is then again the abuse survivor doing the work that the abusers were supposed to do in their technical training. And just being exploited. So that's the bit that just feels numb, in this particular stage of the conversation.